Hello and welcome to another edition of the COVID-19 Response Report. And today we usually start off our mornings with the week in review on Saturdays. And we just want to let you know that at this point we're going to accommodate an interview with the National Council on Public Transportation this morning before we begin, get started with our panel discussion, looking back at the week that was, the highlights for those of you who've been following. There were the parliamentary proceedings that took place this week, as well as a new confirmed case. We will be getting into the meat of those matters in just a moment, but first we have in studio Mr. Frederick, the first Vice President of the NCOPT, as well as Mr. Spencer McPhee, for the first time joining our platform this morning, trustee at the NCOPT. A special good morning to you both.
Thank you, madam.
Good morning. Good morning. And I dare not forget my colleague, Mr. Carlton Cyril, widely known as Cokes. Good morning, Cokes.
Morning, Jesse. Morning to our guests. Bonjour, c'est ici. Quand la coutume, vous savez, aujourd'hui, c'est samedi, ça c'est là nous avons visiter tout ça qui fait en semaine. Avec information et développement. Parler de développement, nous ici et puis nous, c'est genre association en minibus là, nous avons entré dans interview et puis nous avons parlé bayo. Et nous avons mis clété en chai ça qui a fait. Dernière fois, nous avons changé là, nous jouons et puis en chai information. Là, il pour faire combien de monde pour yo chai. Là, il pour faire que c'est bon. Tout bagaille. Quand on a été pli de ça et puis protocole là est venu pour COVID. Encore nous avons sorti hot headquarters COVID-19 studio GIS NTN excusez-moi. Et puis nous avons été écouter sur yon qui bien important nous tout cas servi transportation avant nous visiter ça qui fait en semaine. Merci tellement.
Thanks for that, Carlton. Today is Saturday, the 6th of June. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. We're starting our Saturday morning not with the week in review just yet, but with a special interview with the NCOPT. I want to start with you, Mr. VP, Mr. Frederick. We had the Bankers Association here yesterday, and we've been hearing from the various sectors on how they have been part of the mitigation and recovery effort in St. Lucia in response to COVID-19. There's been so much that the public transport sector has been through since the onset of COVID-19, but so far since the measures have been implemented, for the health and safety measures have been implemented, can you speak to the level of compliance, the significance of it within your sector at this time, and the effectiveness so far?
Okay, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thanks for having us here this morning. During the, if I may say, during the beginning of all of this, the executive of NCOPT met and we had quite a bit of discussions with the ministries involved. That is the Ministry of Transport and also the Ministry of Health. Okay. In that the Ministry of Health, they gave us the layout how to prepare to prevent the spread of it, the part we had to play as COVID was approaching our shores. You would recall, and also the Ministry of Transport in terms of the reduction, if needs be, and how we go about into rotation and different issues. So the first portion of it worked pretty well in that we had those meetings with the official from the Ministry of Health, and then COVID arrived in St. Lucia, the first case. When we made our adjustments in terms of 14 down to 10 and then to 7, it was a smooth transition. And I must say, as we speak, we have had no minibus operator tested positive for COVID, which is a plus for us. However, going back to the regular amount, this is where the challenge is, the full capacity. And hence the reason why we are here today, to try to discuss, try to sensitize the public and our operators what we must do. It's not a matter of what we think, we must do. Because we play a critical role in terms of bringing persons to and from. We carry a community in and out of a community. When you leave on a morning, you carry a doctor, a nurse, a police, a fireman, a regular person, somebody just doing some groceries. You carry many persons outside of a community to create another community. And in the evening, you bring them back. Now that itself is very important, because if we go wrong by just one notch, we can end up in trouble. So compliance is necessary for our survival.
And definitely, if you could just get into the 14 to 10 to 7, and now coming back into a new situation. Speak to some of the measures as advised by the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Health so far.
Okay, from the Ministry of Health point of view, the greatest concern is the adherence to the protocol. And what is sad for us is that while we are steeply negotiating and discussing through the Ministry of Transport, and I must say that the Minister of Transport have had quite a bit of dialogue with us. And we have understood that the buck stops with the Chief Medical Officer and her team. And what is happening right now there, while we have set the path for the full load capacity, we have a challenge. And the challenge is simple. Persons are now going to Scotiabank, Republic Bank, Bank of St. Lucia. They wear the mask. But as soon as you have to take a minibus to and from certain locations, they relax. So we are forced now to go into the direction of saying no mask, no transport. Not only this, we have a lot of operators who are now so relaxed that they themselves are not wearing the mask. A case in point, there is a particular association that the executive secretary spoke with a particular driver. And he was wearing the mask and left the bus stand, and less than 200 meters, he took it. He took it off, not realizing who was on the vehicle. And he said the whole host of things. Now, what we are saying, if you are not able to keep the mask on for some respiratory illness or any issues that you may have, our office is open. And maybe just you need to employ somebody to drive for you. You need to look at the adjustments you need to make, because these are serious times. I don't believe, based on the discussions that we've had, that the Chief Medical Officer and the other persons we are dealing with would have any issue in a full load capacity as long as we adhere to the protocols. Because at the end of the day, if you are driving your personal vehicle, you don't have that much contact with many persons. But a minibus carries hundreds of persons per day. And if you look at it in another sense, the person who is not wearing the mask, you are actually affecting the livelihood of the operator, because you are preventing him from making a full load capacity to take care of his family and loans and other things that he may have. So we are heading in a direction where we have to do certain things for our mere survival. Because as you would have understood, we've been saving the nation for the past 3 months, thereabout. No minibus operator island-wide, I will tell you that truthfully, have made a single, and basically no profit. Some are working way below the survival line. And if it continues that way, then we may see a little difference in terms of the output of the operations.
Okay. Let's speak to some of the relaxed measures so far. We've seen the reopening of our society, the entering of phase 4 this week. Speak to some of the relaxed measures that you have received, your office has received from the Ministry of Health so far in terms of the bus load, and reinforce that point to both patrons and your operators.
Okay. To the bus load, what we're saying at this time, we need the operators to be able to function with a full capacity. What is between the full capacity and the operator is not the office of NCOPT, is not the Ministry of Transport, is not the Ministry of Health. It is the strict adherence to the protocols that are being placed. You must wear the mask. Where sanitizers are provided, you use it or you provide your own. When you are in transit from here to Northwest, from Castries to Northwest or anywhere along the way, reduce the amount of communication you have on the bus. This is not the time to be in a deep discussion or heated argument, whether it's political, religious, or otherwise. Keep quiet. You may talk to somebody, just a little conversation, but understand that the times we're living in are different. The approach to the driver when a passenger is asked to wear the mask must be different. And we are getting a lot of complaints where the driver have asked a passenger to wear the mask, and then the insults, the abuse, and all of that. Whereas the drivers have been doing pretty good. We have one or two bad ones among us, we must admit. But the 90 to 95% of our drivers, they are trying. But we need to understand, let us take it step by step so that we can get out of this mess. Yeah.
Mr. McPhee, I now segue to you. If you could just speak to, well, we know that the pressure that the bus operators have been under so far and the rotation system that has since been implemented. Can you speak to the effects, the impact of the rotation system, how it is benefiting the operators? And I would imagine you would have a timetable, so the discipline that would be involved in ensuring this is pulled off in an effective way.
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Like the Vice President said earlier, we did some PR long before COVID actually really came full stream. We worked with the CMO, Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Transport, and we advised all associations to go on the rotation. They didn't do it by choice. They didn't have a choice. It was compulsory that they had to go on rotation because the numbers in commuting public was dropped significantly. That's one. And for health reasons as well. Most associations complied. Well, all complied. As far as we know to date, we've had no issues with anybody not wanting the rotation. In fact, most associations, I make my runs around the bus stands, and the president is saying so far everything is working pretty well.
So it's welcomed across the board.
It's welcome across the board. You've had associations who've never tried it before, like Viewfort, even Grozile, and you can get the feedback from them that it's okay. It's okay. In relation to the rotation, you find like there was a small issue with the waiting period on bus stands, but we worked around that because it was a fairly new thing to some drivers and associations. But so far, everything is working on fine so far.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's no indiscipline. You're not finding drivers.
Well, you find one or two who felt the rotation wasn't for them, and they were dealt with. And we have the backing of the ministry and the minister and National Council by extension to deal, and we have mechanisms in place to deal with them. We do.
You are watching NTN Live. We're live from the GIS studios from the Information Command Center. We're speaking to the representatives, executives from the National Council on Public Transportation. We're due for our first break this morning. When we come back, we take a look at the last few months since the onset of COVID-19, how the bus drivers, the bus operators here in St. Lucia within the public transport system have been so far faring, and what plans are in place to give some relief going forward. Stay tuned.
It's easy to become afraid during a disease outbreak, especially a pandemic. How can I catch it? Who already has it? How do I stay safe? How can I keep my family safe? Uncertainty can lead us to reject or to be afraid of people affected by COVID-19. It's normal that we feel worried. But sticking with the facts on how to prevent COVID-19 from spreading and what to do if you encounter symptoms is our best defense. Rejecting or fearing people can cause them to hide their symptoms. It discourages people from practicing preventive behaviors like wearing masks and physical distancing. It can even stop people from seeking health care. Ultimately, this means the disease is harder to diagnose, treat, and contain. So how can we overcome fear and stigma to help the fight against COVID-19? Words matter. Talk to and about people affected by the virus with respect. Spread the facts. Practice and share the recommendations endorsed by your health authorities. Be kind and look after each other. Check in on your family, friends, and neighbors. Offer support where you can. Have you seen social stigma happening in your community? How did you respond? Tell us in the comments below.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. I know we've come to have the usual week in review, but we're starting off our Saturday morning with a very important interview with the executives from the National Council on Public Transportation here with us to speak about the impact that COVID-19 has had so far and some of the measures that have been put in place to ensure that at least all parties can come away health and safety wise good, as well as the economic end, the trade-off between the two or going well for the public transport sector. We want to get into a recent meeting that was held with the executive of the NCOPT alongside the Department of Transport. But before we do that, I will just hand over to Carlton to just engage Mr. Kentry Frederick, the first Vice President, and Mr. Spencer McPhee, the trustee at the NCOPT, on the previous interview discussion.
Merci tellement, Jesse. Et puis encore, moi dire merci pour votre venue ici. Ça pas première fois que nous changer, nous avons information. Moi bien changer, monsieur Frederick dit qu'il y a une information qu'on développement.co. Encore pour vous qui écoutez nous aujourd'hui samedi, normalement nous avons visiter tout ça qui fait en semaine. Mais avant nous faire ça, bon matin, nous avons ce genre minibus association ici et puis nous, NCOPT. Et puis, vous savez, c'est eux qui ont une responsabilité, là, ils viennent pour matière, et puis minibus, et puis c'est association. Parmi les bagages, vous bien savent, si même ça, nous entrons en 4e phase, là, ça c'est côté pays à vie ouvert. Quand chaque de nous qui a suivi ça, qui a fait là, là, ils viennent pour y dans ce secteur qui trouve qu'on est affecté, c'est association transportation, minibus là. Parmi ça, vous savez, parce que pour distance là, pour masse, pour route là, la tennis zone, parmi l'autre bagaille, nous avons dit tout ça pour dire, pas de temps, yo pas de s'achailler, même quantité moun, pas de temps, route là, santé bonne de fermée, pas de temps, tout ça qu'a fait, yo qu'on nous en chaille nous, ni dépenses, ni famille, c'est un business ba yo. Quand yo ici à nous information, on va commencer pour monsieur Frederick, ça convenu, moi te ka couteau et ko ha parler lan chay bagay, mais moi observer yo dans ces bagay là ou ka dit qui bien important c'est date qui les vini pour protocole. Avec les vini pour passagers, les vini pour mettre minibus là c'est chauffeur, c'est un parmi bagay où j'ai touché à ça. Quoi bienvenue et puis est-ce que ça mettez clarté en l'air ça vraiment vle du public là et puis est-ce chauffeur et puis mettre ces minibus ça bon matin.
Bonjour monsieur. Moi je voulais remercier toujours ma pas toi pas là pas dire bon matin aujourd'hui ça. Mais oui, là regardez ça nous a fait pour l'air. Ça nous voulait dire public là, ça nous voulait dire mon chauffeur qui a monté descendre à sous machine minibus. Oui, nous voulons veiller même manière nous sortir from full capacity pour nous descendre pour 10, pour 7, nous veiller 9 et nous veiller monter. Ça qui est bien important, c'est on pour follow protocol. Suivre protocole qui Ministry of Health mettez là. Parce que sans protocole nous pas qu'à savoir monter manière nous voulons aller. So là on point un bus pour aller en ville, là on point un bus pour aller en côté. Masse là on est pour mettre sanitize la main, côté ça chauffeur à cadeau. Si chauffeur même pas ni masse là, ou pas obligé ba bien puis mais dit chauffeur moi ka moto moi ni masse moi mettez masse aussi because vous comprenez because c'est chauffeur rappelle en chay l'argent. Mais yo comprendre service là qui était pour offert et nous a fait ça nous pour faire pour sauver pays.
Enfin, ça on va dire c'est vous mieux ou perdre l'argent c'est que nous sauver la vie. Parce intention de tout ça qui a fait là, c'est pour nous sauver la vie avec empêcher 20 000 ça s'immerger.
Ouais, parce que quand nous a parlé là, la pani pièce operator moi savent aujourd'hui là qui j'ai trouvé qu'on est malade de COVID-19. C'est parce que Ministry of Health en commencement ban nous guidelines qui manière nous te supposé aller et nous servir ça. So quand nous aller via ouvert pays, plus moun nous transporter plus moun, nous ni pour suivre protocole là pour nous trouver qu'on nous kay chebe santé nous en ordre et nous kay via faire l'argent pour aider famille nous pour point que ça nous n'est pas prêt. So bagay là qui plus important là c'est protocole avec l'argent qui vient derrière.
Vitement aussi, moi change au toucher à sous approche. Pas dit nous ka parler de protocole. Nous voulons public là, nous voulons chauffeur, c'est chauffeur à comprendre yon bagay. C'est un service qu'il a toujours. Et qu'on a dit les vini pour moun ka mandé approche là. Parler à sous approche là ni passager et puis ni chauffeur, les vini pour suivre protocole là.
Oui. Là où battre en l'auto pour actuellement la minibus. Conversation kay ni cheni coûte. Mettez masque, battre minibus là, dit bonjour. Make sure driver ni masque, driver même mandé mon a mettre masque. Là où descend minibus là, ou paye driver service sanitizer, driver même là où fin masser toute la on service sanitizer, et on try by on a lot support. Because driver besoin l'argent ou besoin service là, et yo de à connect pour faire yon bagay. So là nous fait ça qu'on payer à sa vie. Because yon nan se bay là nous voulons dire moun, ça qui ka aller là nous pas voulons mix religion en dedans, nous pas voulons mix politique en dedans. Nous c'est Saint-Lucien et nous ka try empêcher yon vermine détruire pays.
Oui, avant nous aller plus loin parce que moi ça j'ai fini plus pour dire et puis discuter épisode. Monsieur Macvé, on les bord là pour c'est yon tala là ou parler, yon c'est bagay là on dit bagay qui a mis en place ou parler de rotation nan yon rotation côté ou ka ouais un 7 minibus driver qui travaille un jour et ben yon semaine et puis ou ka bagay parlant petit à quand laisse ça les vini pour ça qui a mis en place et qui manière qui travaille.
Oui, bonjour. Pour le présent, nous avons coupé à ce 4 minibus qui travaillent pour journée. Chaque association, moi ça dit, c'est à la, presque à half. Nous coupons pas half.
10 000.
À 10 000, oui. So nous mettons 20 minibus à sur une route, ou payons 10 à l'air. Oui. Because of la panique assez monde qui travel comme avant.
Oui.
Et ces chauffeurs ont compris ça.
OK.
Ils ont compris ça. Et ça travaille assez bien. Parce que en pour tenir 10, 20 minibus qui travel à même l'air, et que ils ont brûlé fuel, anything, et que ils ont plus passé, ils ont la présent. So ils comprennent la nécessité pour couper à ce quantité qui travel à présent.
OK.
En même voie, moi je veux mener un point date. Là, il y a un petit problème nous avons fait ce délai. En chaque commuteur, là, il y a un bâche de bus, là, il y a un fil, parce que c'est minibus, il n'y a pas de servir, il n'y a pas de mettre masque.
Mais tout l'autre côté,
mais là, il y a différentes places de business. Mais avant, il y a sur ligne, il y a mettre masque. So, nous voulons plaider pour eux, that minibus, c'est le même business là, en l'autre business. Et que nous ne pouvons pas servir, parce que nous parlons ça, c'est mieux. Nous voulons préserver la vie.
OK, merci Jean pour ça. Et encore sous café nous calculer ça qui a fait bon matin et samedi ça ici à sous NTNGIS en studio headquarters COVID. Nous avons information développement avec bon matin c'est là pour faire NCOPT qui est responsable pour les affaires minibus et association. Quand nous information et ou bien temps attention yo c'est à sous protocole là. Yo ka dit ça qui bien clair moi ka nous ka comprendre parce que Jesse ni pour aller plus en détail pour yo même nous plus information. Là il vini pour secteur ça qui c'est Jean minibus là, il bien important suivre protocole avec monsieur Magfi et just dit encore si ou ka battre un minibus ou sort en banque ou sort en boutique ou sort tout l'autre côté, yo pas ka permettre entrer sans masque là, mais là où il va avoir minibus là on veut entrer sans masque. Nous ka dit il pas supposé qu'on protocole déjà établi, il y a un ministre qui est responsable pour santé ou ni pour mettre un masque là où battre pièce transport ici expressément ces minibus là. Il bien clair, il y a dit même bagaille pour driver pour ces chauffeurs, yo supposé mettre masque. Et puis moi quand monsieur Frédéric fait un point, si vous c'est yon qui ni pièce qualité trois calé vinn masque là pièce ou vonowab santo yo do office là où ça parler ba yo là ni manière ou même ça agir puis ça mais panique vini de malade ou pas ça mettre parce que encore En tout ça qui est allé là, attention, c'est pour sauver la vie, pour empêcher vermine ça, si manger. Nous avons ça qui a fait l'autre pays, et grâce à Dieu, nous pouvons connaître quelle situation ça ici. Quand tout ça nous peut faire, on nous fait souple. Nous allons continuer ici à parler avec ces gens, il y aura nous plus d'informations. Mon avis passe avec Jesse.
Thank you for that, Carlton. I believe it was just recently you had a meeting with the Department of Transport, and if you could just give the public an understanding of what transpired in terms of the new accommodations within the public transport sector as we in this phased reopening of our society.
Okay, very well. Last week Sunday, we had a meeting with the minister. The meeting was intense because the cry for going back to a full load capacity was one of the main subjects. And the executive of NCOPT had the full discussion with the minister, and we express in always what is needed for us to be able to perform the duty of minibus operations. However, as we've said, the protocols must be adhered to. And it was very exciting because in the sense that during the meeting, although the CMO was not present, we were able to speak to her via the media. And then she expressed that. We must also let persons know the aspect of it that most persons don't look at when you are not wearing the mask. And I will give you a typical example. At present, if I may use the route to which Castries to Vieux Fort, for example, a full load capacity is $120 thereabout from Castries to Vieux Fort before fuel. Without the mask, at present, since they are working below the full load capacity, they are basically making $72 or $80. Now, if you remove $40 for fuel, you have a bus coming from Castries to Vieux Fort after fuel just to have $32 if all the passengers get to Castries. If they stop Cul-de-sac and Bexon, different places, that bus would only have $20 left after that entire journey. With the protocols being adhered to, what you have to understand, one passenger or a passenger not wearing the mask, or we don't have mass adherence to it, and the Ministry of Health is holding back. The simple math is that $72 now, minus 120, your actions is causing that minibus operator one way, basically $48, just by not wearing the mask. So whereas we are saying wear the mask, understand the financial implication that you as a passenger is having on the operator. And I must say, island-wide, the operators gave that service, and I must say thank you to them. The office of NCOPT, although sometimes we hear that we're not doing a lot, but it is not so. It is not so. The meetings we have, the consultations we have, the executive meets, is just to try to get the operators out of that, because there are operators on certain routes at this time that cannot buy brake pads. There are operators that did the service, they assisted the nation in that, and they are thinking of how next they will buy a set of tires. Now, if we are following the protocols, and bear in mind that the Ministry of Health do the monitoring. We do our monitoring. It's not a matter of somebody saying that the drivers are not wearing the mask. The Ministry of Health have their officials following what is happening. They have persons traveling on the buses. We have persons traveling on the buses just to see what is happening. This morning, I came from Vieux Fort. I decided not to drive. So as anything else, I grabbed my mask, I paid the driver, and I'm on the bus. And I am just watching. I will not give the details. I have spoken to the driver. We will deal with that afterwards. There were 8 of us on the bus. And I was the only person with the mask on the bus from Vieux Fort to Castries. Before I got off the bus, I said, can I engage you all in a short conversation? And then I said, driver, you did not have your mask. And he said, oh, I have it hanging there. I said, not even with me on board, it is in your mind. And I turn around and then I engage the passengers. What I must emphasize on here, as he dropped 2 persons at the Grand Riviere in the valley, the junction, 2 persons got off, and there was a gentleman and a lady that boarded subsequently. Both of them were wearing the mask from the valley. And I thanked them. And I explained to them why I appreciated that. But the 6 others that were at the back saw nothing wrong with that. And then I said to them, you all have just taken $48 from the driver. And this is what we are saying. The drivers have a family. They need to be able to provide for their families. They need to be able to maintain their vehicles. But if we don't have strict adherence to the protocol, there is no way on earth that we will support just do anything, and we will not be able to convince the Ministry of Health to do the final part. We are almost there. So you basically have gone to school, you have done all your studies, there is CXC or common entrance tomorrow, and you decide to come to school without a shirt. We're saying, wear your mask, let us complete the process, keep it safe. Also in the meeting with the minister last week Sunday, we look at the relief package for the drivers that were affected harder than others, for example, 2H and 3F. As you are aware that they did not work for approximately 7 weeks. They could not have worked. And the details of that we cannot give yet. We have some more calculating to do and so on. But I am guessing on a subsequent program, we will be able to do that. For the other routes that were affected marginally, we are also doing our maths, we are also doing calculations and so on, and to see how best we can do the assistance for that. We also have some other issues that we were discussing, primarily the discipline, because we have a few drivers well noted that think that they can do whatever they want. And as Mr. McPhee said, it does not happen that way. We have certain rules and regulation in place, and these drivers will be dealt with. We have held back in terms of the suspension of the route permit. That can be done under these conditions. We have held back against the revocation of certain privileges you have. That can be done. Because where one individual just believes they can blatantly disobey the rules and regulations, the protocol, we have enough information that we write you, we go the way we're supposed to do, and then the vehicle will be impounded. And we must say thanks to the Commissioner of Police and his team.
I was coming to that.
Yes, the police have worked extremely well, even when certain minibus drivers misbehave. The police came on the bus stand, they spoke to them, had things on the cam and left. I do not know any minibus operator that have received a ticket from the time this thing has gone as far as that is related. If it's in terms of your insurance or something of that sort, maybe, but as far as I know, none.
Okay.
So,
do you, and that question is also to Mr. McPhee, do you think in terms of the non-compliance that it is due to, perhaps a culture, perception that, there's very little regard for public transport perhaps, and it being informal, I dare say?
Well, to an extent, yes. To an extent, yes. And I think we have called it on ourselves. The operators, we have, in the way we continue to do business. And we're hoping that will change. We're hoping that NCOPT can bring in a new culture, so to speak. I just want to emphasize the point that the Vice President brought up a while ago with indiscipline. We have drivers who have been like a perennial problem throughout. It's not only COVID. And I dare say to them, they will be dealt with. In terms of rotation, even before when school was closed and so on, and they continue to feel they can just flout the law and do what they want. We have a number of drivers who continue to do that, and they've been given problems from day one.
But for such offenses, even for patrons boarding the buses, do you think that there's been enough sensitization of the punitive measures that would have to be put in place should they, you know, or the punishment that would be put in place should there be any non-adherence to the...
Well, we did because what we did in the initial stages, we met with all respective associations. We did the North, we did the South, we did them like separately, right? And we told them the consequences, what we expect of them.
So there's no excuse?
No, there's no excuse. And we actually met with the executives and we explained to them what we expect of them and the consequences, you know. So I don't think there's any excuse, you know, one can use.
Okay, going back to the meeting.
Right. So what we are hoping to do sometime next week is to have some fruitful discussion with the minister in terms of minibus internal issues, not problems, issues. As you might be aware, most persons or most groups have presented their COVID package, or what we may call it. The minibus sector is so diverse that you have to understand what is happening and act accordingly. And one of the things that is very interesting in this whole issue, we will, the executive of NCOPT, we will leave religious interference out. We will leave political interference out. At no time will the executive of NCOPT disrespect the government of St. Lucia. And we're not talking about a political party, we're looking at the government of St. Lucia.
Administration.
Right. We have not done it in the past 10, 12, 13 years, we're not going to do it now. That does not mean we don't disagree with the government. I will tell you, if you were at that meeting on Sunday, probably you would still have smoke coming out of your ears. But then that happens behind. We don't always agree with the minister. We don't always agree with the policies of government. For example, there was a bridge being built at Laritwet, Moshi, and we received a communique that the Moshi drivers would have to go to Harbour Club at Grosile, Rodney Bay, to go into Moshi. So we engaged the minister and we expressed that we were greatly disappointed that NCOPT was not part of the consultation. But we only realized then that infrastructure is separated from transport. So whereas we had placed the pressure on the minister that there should have been consultation with NCOPT if our operators have to go an additional mile, the responsibility there was not his. It was that of the Minister of Infrastructure. So to that, he had to do his dialogue with the Minister of Infrastructure to sort that out, which we got it out. There are certain works that will be done somewhere in Castries pretty soon. We will be having a site visit, and more than likely, before the relocation of that bus stand, we will do a little bit of PR. So that the customers can understand they go to a separate location, not too far from there, to facilitate the commute to and from. So whereas some of the issues were before was just infrastructure and transport together, now infrastructure and transport are separated. So now we know we have to write to Mr. Stephenson King on certain issues, and we would be doing that. But as I said, going forward, what we must stress on, the NCOPT, we have not done as much PR as we should have done. And not because we choose not to, but sometimes the pressure is so immense that dealing with just one thing, by the time you're through, your mandate is set back a bit. And what we are doing as COVID is prolonging, we are taking stock of a lot of things. I must mention, there are certain persons, because of their agenda, they choose to go on, yes, we have to be open. They choose to go on social media and other stuff and say anything they want about me and NCOPT. You must note, Godfrey Ferdinand has been out of St. Lucia. He's one of those persons, the president of NCOPT, who unfortunately got stuck out of the country. I was told that he should be back pretty soon. But before that, you'd hear Godfrey. And we have always said to them, the executive of NCOPT is so structured that there is no infighting. Everybody has their role. Now, anytime he's out, automatically the responsibility falls on me and Mr. Flood, and it goes down the line, the PRO and all of us. And we do have a good rapport. But notwithstanding all of this, we are in constant communication with him.
Okay.
So persons who have the ideas as to NCOPT is not doing this and that and the other, I choose to be a professional in that regard. And we've said the media, whether HTS, DBS, Choice, GIS, NCOPT's office is open to the media anytime. There is no question that the media house can ask us that we cannot answer. There is certainly an open door to NCOPT's office. So feel free anytime that you want to call us and clarify something, we can do that. Because we've been working hard. And the main point that one of my colleagues reminded me of late last night, he said, from 2008 to now, we have not actually had a bus fare increase. Yes, it was approved. But the government of St. Lucia, and that is why I say we will not disrespect the government of St. Lucia, irrespective of who is the administrator or prime minister. The government of St. Lucia from 2008 to now have understood the different areas that we have had to work in and with to give us incentives sometimes instead of a bus fare increase or a fuel rebate. So when we explain that, we want persons to understand this we're doing here is not all about money. This phase, this special time we're living in is about survival. When we survive this, we will make money. It does not make sense to make money today and you're dead next week. So this is what the message NCOPT is putting out now. Compliance to the protocol. The headache in terms of negotiation, in terms of meetings with the minister, the protocols, leave that to the executive of NCOPT. When we ask you to do something, the official source of information is us. And we liaise directly with the executive of route associations. Yes.
Okay. I just want to get into logistics in terms of bus seating arrangements. Any conclusions with the authorities on that, in terms of perhaps maybe families being able to sit together?
Yes. What we realized at the meeting on Sunday, we had an error. And when we make an error at NCOPT, we admit it. We admit it. Even if we're on NTN, even if we're on DBS, we will admit our error. For example, if you had, when we had the capacity, the full capacity, anybody sat by anybody. COVID was not around. But we were so concerned about reducing the spread of COVID, we went from 14, 15 to 10 to 7. And we are back up the line. But we made an error in terms of the capacity. For example, if your capacity was 7, you have 4 persons on board. So, for example, your back seat, you have 1, 2, and 1 at the front, and 1 somewhere. Now you come up to a junction, a family of 5. These people live in the same household. They eat, they breathe, they walk together. How do you isolate these people just because they're going on a minibus? Which means for that instant, the 5 that you have on board and your family of 4 will be 9 persons on board. Because these persons live together. But in the haste, not the haste, with the caution we had, we overlooked that aspect of
oversight.
It. Yeah. Right. So we're saying we made an error in that regard, and it applies as we speak. Because, for example, if you have 9 right now, 8 right now, you come with a family of 4 or 5. It is a ticklish situation. How do you separate these people from one another? They live in the same household. So there are instances where you will find the capacity is above the 9 or the 10 or the 7, simply because these are persons from the same household.
And an appeal to not abuse that.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where we want to be very cautious that an operator does not abuse and look for that excuse or that scapegoat that it's a family. You carry the full 15 or the 14. We want to be very cautious about that. Whilst there is room for you to allow to be carried to transport the family of 4 or 5, which might add up to the 12 or 10 passengers. But don't abuse. Don't go to the 15 deliberately and say it's just families. Well, a set of families, a set of families. So we want to be very cautious about that.
Okay. Understood.
I also want to just throw in that at the meeting on Sunday, the minister did express the fact that he would love to see us go back to full capacity. And the CMO as well. And I mean her office, her department. But the reality, the harsh reality is the protocol adhere to the protocol. There's also the fear of, you know, the social distancing. You want to maintain that. So they would love to see us go back to full capacity, but because of the fear of the spread and stuff like that, we need to downscale.
Absolutely.
So it's not anything personal or, you know, they denying us.
Absolutely. That's across all the sectors.
Because what is happening, you find operators meeting us and giving us pressure that, oh boy, you're not fighting for us, you're not doing anything. It's not that we're not fighting for you. There is an issue at hand, and it's bigger than all of us.
Understood.
That's the bottom line.
Mr. Frederick.
Yes. So we're looking at Monday, effective Monday, God's willing. The 10 would apply under normal circumstances.
Effective Monday.
Monday. The if 10 would apply under normal circumstances. The letter for that, the document for that, we will receive it hopefully from the minister, and by Monday, Tuesday. Also, the police will be fully aware that the circumstances, because there were a few occasions where they had this little back and forth. The 10 persons would apply effective Monday. However, the additional situations that may present themselves may put you over that. But we are asking flexible. But we are asking persons not to abuse the privilege while we are still seeking the full load. Our ultimate aim is the full load, but with the adherence of the protocol.
There is just one thing I want to throw in again. The police has assured us they will not be dropping the guards. They will not be dropping the guards. They will be vigilant as ever, and they'll be doing the rounds on the bus stand as usual, because we've had the police doing spot checks on the bus stands, making sure that you have the capacity required, well, agreed to, so they will not be dropping the guards. And to the operators who are operating without a mask, it's going to be a serious issue, because you're actually almost getting what you want, what you ask for, which is a higher amount in capacity. So
and flexibility.
And flexibility. So you need to comply. You need to comply. So it will not be business as usual.
And just before you go to my learned friend, I notice he's packed up for me. But what we are saying, effective Monday, we expect all associations, executive island-wide, to take note of those individuals who disobey the rules.
Put it in writing.
Put it in writing, challenge it to the office of NCOPT, let us deal with these people. Because we need the message to be out there, the service must be provided. And there are a few operators, for one reason or the other, who feel that this is not good enough for them. We are still giving you the option. If you choose, you do not want to work,
so be it.
So be it. You can stay home. You can stay home. But as long as you are going to operate within the confines of what we are given. Compliance and adherence to the protocol.
Absolutely. So there you have it, effective Monday, 8th June 2020. A 10 passengers per bus arrangement has been implemented for Monday coming. Of course, there's a level of flexibility put in place. If you are a family of 5, you can all sit together on the transport, and that would bring the number up.
A little above, yes.
I need to bring up the point again that the CMO has indicated, in case there is an upsurge in cases of COVID
on island,
we're going to go back to scale down. Okay, so let us just keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well and not take things for granted. Okay?
Absolutely. I mean, we require the input of the public transport sector to ensure that we don't have to revert back to previous phases where, there are cluster of cases, God forbid, an outbreak here in St. Lucia.
So we need to be vigilant. We need to be vigilant and don't take things for granted, think everything is okay, we're out of the blues yet and so on.
We do hope that the operators are taking note of this, and we do hope that the patrons, residents of St. Lucia who make use of the public transport system here on island, are taking heed to the level of compliance that is required, adherence to the laws as it pertains to public transport. When you're getting on the bus, use your mask. Of course, there are responsibilities of the operators as well, but if you do your part, then you will have no reason to be called out. You will not be infringing on anyone's livelihood, as we're talking about bus operators' livelihoods. You know, everybody, we're all in this together. And so if everyone does their part, Carlton, as we've been constantly saying every day, you know, if everyone does their part, then this society, this phased reopening can happen more seamlessly than is concerning at this point.
And we have been saying the first person or the only person you could guarantee to follow protocols or to put things in place is starting with yourselves.
Absolutely.
You know, if everybody do what they have to do, I wear my mask, I sanitize my hand, I keep away from the crowds, I do what I have to do, then I know I am contributing. Encore nous gadi merci pour qui ka continuer écouter programme dans bon matin. Yon qui moi quand chaque monde ka hen chaque clarté et puis en chaque explanation qu'on nous toujours dit si vous voulez joindre la vérité à si vous voulez joindre de manière hier nous ici à headquarters COVID-19. Mr. Frederick Naivier pour commencer pour en studio à nous et puis nous Mr. Frederick c'est le premier vice-président il y a c'est trustee Mr. McPhee ici yo ici excusez-moi Kabanou information là il pour faire secteur sa transportation expressement c'est genre minibus là nous tend en chaque explanation bail et quand chaque attention à ce protocole là il pour faire ça qui a fait là you have répondre chaque question parmi qui ça qui a passé décision qui a point qui ça yo déjà voulu ou public là fait à présent nous ka catchile dit yon meeting qui te tient et puis un ministre qui est responsable pour la transportation parmi l'autre bagaille ça c'est honorable Guy Joseph et puis en chaque discussion point coup moi ka quoi si vous t'es écouté ou ka tani mais nous en exvlo monsieur Frederick monsieur Macri n'a commencé pour monsieur Frederick en coûte pour les où et puis ministre les autres comme bord de la jeune et puis ministre qui ça qui était discuté et puis qui arrangement qui fait côté côté pour à présent ça tient écoute parce que nous avons un chaque information
ah ouais oui les nous jeunes ministres transport dimanche qui passé nous tenons un bon meeting et puis avec nous réaliser ça nous bali pour travailler à ça parce que manière nous aller nous ka écrire une lettre nous pas juste aller parole nous les lettres là nous ça mucho s'ouvrir après interview nous ka matcher ministre là et pour nous dire ça nous voulait discuter
conseil autres
right et il y en a ces bagages là qui étaient bien important c'est pour nous ça chailler plus monde pour nous sortir en situation ça parce que ça on peut réaliser en chaque operators et mettre machine yo à ce borderline
oui
right so nous discuter ça mais ça nous réaliser qui fait c'est nous ni pour commencer mettre masque là parce que ça c'est un grand gênement qui empêche nous chailler plus monde aussi nous discuter l'autre bagaille pays pour ces chauffeurs qui étaient à terre pour presque 7 semaines tout et c'est castrer pour vieux fort et souffrir pour castrer et nous ne pour vieux approcher et l'autre bagaille parce que manière nous te présenter là nous ne pour faire adjustment en lay aussi nous garder monde qui pas veulent follow protocol c'est bus operators avec monde qui veulent by 3K
OK
ouais
so qui pas veulent suivre
je pas veulent suivre ça qui a fait là si vous regardez ces police là ça fait presque tout ça yo ni pour faire ban nous et moi pas catcher à qu'on y actuellement là moun supposé by police là 3K so commencer lundi nous avons 10 passagers et il y en a ces bagages là qui étaient fait là c'est sous te cacher 7 passagers avec on 5 on joint une famille qui a resté dans même cas là et il y a 3 et 4 ça normalement quand maintenant en haut 7 parce que c'est mon qui vivent ensemble ils va rester ensemble so ça on est pour faire là où c'est un chauffeur et on est un monde où on est 2 3 monde qui restent ensemble on y doit pour ranger machine
pour accommoder ça pour mettre famille acide
même site là
oui et puis oui OK
so nous quand aller qu'on être associé semaine lundi si bon de vrai nous quand 10 mais la quand l'occasion qui quand maintenant en haut ça en haut ça famille et l'autre monde qui yo ensemble en même cas ensemble ça nous ne pour faire mon réaliser ultimate goal nous c'est pour arriver maximum capacity. Mais nous n'y pour suivre protocole là pour make sure that si maintenant qui va venir là, le Ministry of Health et l'autre département fait travail yo et nous ka suivre protocole so yo ka ça ouvrir manière nouvelle so nous ka ça survive primaire.
OK. Monsieur Macri, vitement parler sur un bagage qui bien important ou dit parmi bagage qui discuter avec maintenant pas dit qu'a dit monde qui ça qui a fait lundi yon nan se bay là on parler sur là c'est monde qui pas veut suivre gide avec protocole expressément c'est chauffeur qui est désobéissance qui pas ka coûter avec suivre avec on dit monsieur Frederick dit Marc c'est un temps pour police ka gaspiller temps yo avec ressources là nous ni ka mettre monde en place ou t'es parler un petit cas sur ça.
Oui, ça nous trouve l'année chauffeur qui pas qu'à suivre GID. À cause de la loi pas pour eux. Bon, nous avons fait yo savent that as much as nous avons goumé ba yo, yo ni pour suivre GID. Ça c'est moi dit avec ça Ministry of Health ka dit. C'est pas la vie qu'on a avant. La vie c'est différent à présent. So bagay ka ni pour changer. Oui, nous avons même c'est 2 plus passagers, mais là il y a plus stipulation that moun ni pour même masio. Les chauffeurs kay pour commencer à faire ça. Nous avons demandé toute association, président pour commencer pour qu'elles affaires plus toujours. Chauffeur qui pas veut suivre loi, matcher National Council. Écrit en lettre banou, documenter en bagay banou that nous ça dit les piyo. Because ministre là a assuré nous that depuis ces documents centraux, il y a assez kouaï, il y a preuve, il y a dit depuis.
Quand on a dit pas dit hot caméra des ministres là, hot caméra des hot or not.
C'est ça même. C'est ça même.
Ouais.
Because nous pas expect ministre pour faire ban nous. Il y a une limitation. C'est pas nous pour garder pour. Nous même nous avons une responsabilité pour nous pour garder pour affaires nous. Oui. Et nous même nous avons une responsabilité pour nous faire ça qui doit être. Nous avons conscience. So nous avons demandé aux chauffeurs pour mettre caillou en ordre. Commencement à commencer pour compter des plus bonnets. Et nous pour commencer pour.
OK. Merci tellement pour ça. Dernière parole.
Nous voulons remercier le gouvernement Saint-Lucie, nous voulons remercier la police là, nous voulons remercier tout Media House pour l'assistance là au Ministry of Health. Mais ça moi voulais dire mon from lundi si bon devle ou kay wè différents bagages qu'a fait in terms of minibus. Whereas nous ka fait tout ça nous ka negotiate quand yon moun kay dit l'année moun qui ka encourager yon a l'autre fait bêtise. Et ça pas tant pour bêtise, ça pas tant pour djinjen. Si ou pas vle travail, si ou pas ça follow protocole la manière hier, plus mege bay kay fait pour c'est pour wete kayou pas marcher nous la kayou. Because manière nous ka aller ou pas ça follow protocole ou pas ça suivre law association là. Permis ou ka servir route permit là ou ka servir, c'est ça gouvernement. So nous ka encourager tout le monde pour assister nous plus ça et at least nous ça contrôler 20 000 ça. Oui.
Dernière parole.
Moi, je voulais juste remercier NTN, remercier la police là, le gouvernement, pour ça qu'ils ont fait, et remercier les chauffeurs même. Parce que moi, ça donne presque 90% de chauffeurs qui ont compris. Ils ont compris ça qu'il y a. Vous payez un dé qui a fait ça. Mais moi, je voulais remercier en généralement, pour ça, nous savons faire un bon travail, nous savons faire marcher. Nous savons faire marcher, après mon Dieu.
Okay. Et bien là, on est, messieurs, dames, nous avons parlé de ces gens minibus, les venus pour COPT, yo qui a pris des affaires, yo ba toute information ça nous nous jamais éclaté en chay bagay quand en mouton hot monsieur Frederick sou ni pièce question sou rien clarité en rien yo jado ou ça contacter yo et puis bagay kay pli mais merci tellement mon gavier passe au bail Jesse.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question off the topic of this COVID situation. We saw in the Honorable House this week the Prime Minister forwarding a loan for the Millennium Highway and the West Coast Reconstruction Project. Also, we heard from the Honorable Stephenson King, the Minister for Infrastructure, speaking on the JICA project to reconstruct the cul-de-sac bridge and to avert any flooding. You know, that place is flood prone. Can you speak to these infrastructure projects? I know the executive has indicated that they want these projects happening very soon. Speak to the significance of this to the public transport sector.
Okay, the Millennium Highway, as we said, we're leaving the politics out of it. It has been a sore for us and operators. If you notice, most of the routes that are traveling southbound use the MON because of the, you lose your spring, you lose your bushings, and the bushings that would have lasted 6 months normally last a week and a half. Your springs at the back, and they literally break, and then it has been the tires are supposed to last you maybe 3-4 months. You drop into a hole or an edge of something, and then you lost a brand new tire. So it is something that the NCOPT welcomes, and then we are hoping that we can have a smoother place to travel. As I said, the political aspect of it, we're out of that. But in terms of the bridge, that in itself has been a sore for us, and we are hoping to have consultation with the Ministry of Infrastructure, along with the Ministry of Transport, in terms of how we go about it, the bypass, and that would create minimal disturbances or infractions on our operations, because we are doing that during specific time.
And I can also imagine the delight of the drivers that traverse the West Coast Road, the reconstruction of that road also being a very significant capital project, and of course auguring well for the public transport sector.
Sure. But I think during our next interview on that and further on that, we would have our PRO, Mr. Lesmore, to be joining us. He's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and we cannot forget him. But one of the things we want to say that the NCOPT does some things that we don't always speak about. And as you rightfully said, the improvement on road networks, we always welcome it, irrespective of which community or where it is done, because a better road network assists us to provide a more efficient service at a lower operating cost. And that is the biggest issue we have in terms of public transportation, operating costs. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Any final words, or we're wrapping up? We're running out of time for this interview.
Okay, our final words at NCOPT is simple. We are doing our utmost best in terms of negotiations and all of that for our members island-wide. As you would have been aware, there are 1,310 permits island-wide, templates. And to manage that by a group of 7 is a lot. So what we are saying, the NCOPT, the Office of NCOPT, would like strict adherence to the protocols. If the Ministry of Health is willing to work with us for the full load in the coming days, we are expecting persons to comply with the protocols that are put in place. To the passengers that are traveling with us, the commuters, we are simply saying effective Monday, if you do not have the mask, please do not take the public transport. The drivers that are operating, you also need the mask in order to operate. We will enforce our part at NCOPT. However, we are not inclined to be giving the police trouble in terms of that. The police have enough work to do on their own in this whole COVID situation. And we want to thank the Commissioner of Police. We want to thank the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Transport, and all other persons, the media houses, for giving us this opportunity to, share with us. But as we say, as we move on to the full load capacity within the next coming days, we are looking at strict compliance to the protocols.
Okay. Mr. McPhee, you're good on that, or you want to give some final words?
Well, I basically, my vice president basically said it all, so it's basically the same thing.
Wonderful. We just want to acknowledge the presence of the NCOPT PRO, Public Relations Officer, Mr. Dominic Lesmond. Thank you so much for joining us. Even though you're not on the panel, you're not on the platform this morning, your presence is welcome. Just give our regards to your executive. We know Mr. Michael Flood and also Mr. Ferdinand, who is the president, trapped abroad due to COVID-19. We do wish him well when he returns and is placed into institutional quarantine. You'll have quite a story coming out of that.
Certainly. The office of the NCOPT is diverse. We have persons from north, south, east, and west. Mr. Ferdinand, Godfrey Ferdinand, is the president of NCOPT. I am the first vice president of NCOPT, Kentry Frederick. Mr. Michael Flood is the second vice president. Mr. Dominic Lesmore is the PRO. Mr. Sheldon Lerish is the secretary of NCOPT. Mr. Spencer McPhee is the trustee. Mr. Fabian Daisy is also a trustee, and Mr. Philippe Jean-Baptiste, the president of 2H, is also a trustee. And Mr. Demetrius Duplessis, the president of Bexar, is the treasurer.
He's also caught overseas.
And he's also caught overseas.
Wow.
So, you know, when you have your treasurer and your president caught overseas, you know what it does to you. So the formula for that is gray hair for me. But
thankfully, we have the virtual platforms for that, yeah?
Yes, but they're in good spirits, and hopefully they should be here next week if all goes well. Okay. You know, last night he jokingly said, if I have to spend 1 month in quarantine, it doesn't matter, as long as I'm home.
Come back.
You know, so, but they are in good spirits, they are okay, and we are hoping to see them next week. We'll hear from them next week. As when they land in St. Lucia.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Mr. Kentry Frederick, the first Vice President of the NCOPT, and Mr. Spencer McPhee, Trustee of the NCOPT. Thank you so much for sitting in with us to give us this important information. Effective Monday, 8th June 2020, public transports can take on 10 passengers per bus, and that is the arrangement as of effective Monday. Of course, there is a level of flexibility that has been put in place. If you're a family of 3, 4, 5, you can sit together, and so that would tip over the number of individuals on the particular bus. Just want to thank you once again for watching and listening to the important information. Carlton, thank you so much. Our work is not done yet. We want you to stay tuned for more NTN programming. When we come back, we'll be live on panel for the Week in Review. You're watching the COVID-19 response report. We'll be looking at the highlights of this past week. We know that the parliamentary sittings were held, quite a few pronouncements made during the sittings, as well as a new case, a confirmed case of COVID-19 here on island. So for those details and more, we want you to stay tuned. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Stay tuned for more coming up in just a moment.
COVID-19 is a new pandemic disease as declared by the World Health Organization. It is transmitted directly by respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or indirectly through rubbing the face with contaminated hands. There is still no specific treatment or vaccine against COVID-19, and as such, the farming community should adhere to some special recommendations. Ensure that farm clothing and gear is clean. Wash hands thoroughly before harvesting crops. Use face masks and head ties whilst harvesting, cleaning, and packaging crops. Use all safety precautions when transporting crops to the markets and depots, such as handling crates and crops with only clean hands and covering sneezes and coughs with a tissue or the inner arm to ensure body fluids or droplets don't get on produce, and washing hands or using hand sanitizer after using the tissue. More than ever before, your important role as gatekeepers of St. Lucia's nutritional, health, and food security should be taken seriously. When you exercise these precautions, you not only safeguard your health, but also continue to allow all St. Lucians access to freshly grown fruits, vegetables, and other local crops. Remember, it is our responsibility to ensure our nation eats fresh, St. Lucia's best.
And in the latest news, the coronavirus or COVID-19 continues to be a health emergency across the world. Caribbean people are concerned.
Everybody know about COVID-19. COVID-19. Keep socially distance and your proper hygiene. Wash your hands then clean. Don't discriminate cause it might be. It very well could be. Somebody will look like you or look like me. Listening, listening. We're in this together. We all got to work with each other. Look out for our friends and our neighbor. And if you feel sick, don't be afraid to call the doctor.
Red Cross volunteers from across the Caribbean, working hard to fight discrimination. So if a person should feel ill, then they will contact the authorities without hesitation.
The most vulnerable are the elderly, but the truth is it can infect anybody. So what we need is solidarity. Everyone helping everyone like a family. So
this is a message to the nation. Make sure you seek out the right information from official sources like the Ministry of Health, Red Cross and the World Health Organization.
Everybody know about COVID-19. COVID-19. Keep socially distance and your proper hygiene. Wash your hands then clean. Don't discriminate cause it might be. It very well could be. Somebody will look like you or look like me. Listening, listening.
People around the world facing this pandemic. Coronavirus have the whole world a panic. Now is not the time to be fearful, but to be careful, supportive and empathetic.
This is the state of the society. Some people full of fear and anxiety. Yo, a lot of fake news in the community. But what we need now is more love and unity. So
this is a message to the nation. Make sure you seek out the right information from official sources like the Ministry of Health, Red Cross and the World Health Organization.
Everybody know about COVID-19. COVID-19. Keep socially distance and your proper hygiene. Wash your hands then clean. Don't discriminate cause it might be. It very well could be. Somebody will look like you or look like me. Listening, listening. We're in this together. We all got to work with each other. Look out for our friends and our neighbor. And if you feel sick, don't be afraid to call the doctor.
On Thursday, June.
Coronavirus? But children are safe, no?
Hold up. Children are actually more likely to touch all kinds of surfaces, put their hands on their mouths and their eyes, or sneeze and cough with little thought about hygiene when around others. While children have been seen to recover well from this virus, they can easily spread it to those more at risk, like the elderly or ill persons who have a weaker immune system. Teach the little ones in your care to be little powerhouses of infection prevention. Keep reminding them, wash your hands. Cover your mouth with tissue or your inner elbow when you sneeze and cough. And be sure to praise them when you see them taking these precautions. Our health is in our hands. Together, through simple actions, we can stop the spread of coronavirus. This message was brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hello and welcome back to studio. We're live from the Information Command Center. Quite a bit of banter this morning before the start. We just concluded a very important interview with the National Council on Public Transportation and continuing with our weekend review. Thank you, Roger. With our weekend review this morning to keep everybody abreast as to what transpired this past week. As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, we did have another confirmed case of COVID-19 here on island. We'll be hearing from the Chief Medical Officer on that, bringing our total number of cases to 19. So at this point, you already know that we have the 18 cases fully recovered. No one succumbing to COVID-19 here on this island. One active case right now in isolation being treated. And if we could just hear from the Chief Medical Officer in just a moment, and you will get all the information that you need in terms of that new case and how that case emerged. Meantime, a special welcome again to you. My name is Jessie Leos. I'm joined in studio by my colleagues, Mr. Tony Nicholas, Ms. Lissa Joseph, and Mr. Carlton Cyril, as usual, every Saturday. Good morning, lady and gentlemen.
Oh,
morning, yes,
morning.
yes.
I was
So good day.
Why, the ladies, tout nous oubliez nous. Encore nous a dit bonjour, merci qu'on kon la coutume depuis vini pour dimanche samedi nous ni tout le monde ici et puis nous vous voyez c'est ça la semaine et puis c'est toujours un plaisir pour nous tous venir ensemble. Nous avons discuté et visiter tout ça qui fait en semaine avec développement et information c'est ça nous avons qu'on est bien ouais avant nous commencer bon matin nous tenir ces gens minibus là la cabane nous pli information et développement. Quoi et puis nous coûter nous apprécier ça tout bonnement expressément pour ces gens sur Facebook et puis ces gens dans l'autre pays nous a dit bienvenue bonjour ba ou et merci pour support pour ces gens qui sont sur radio nous a dit bonjour ba ou aussi et toujours un plaisir changer ici à the headquarters COVID-19 côté nous a disséminer et ba ou vraiment information l'année pour faire et puis COVID-19.
How was the week, Lucia? I know you did quite a few interviews down here in studio.
Yeah, the week was one where, you know, all eyes on Parliament for the week. That was certain. Yesterday I had a very, very revealing interview with the director of the OECS, Director General of the OECS, Dr. Dedicus Jules. And that interview placed into context for us in St. Lucia exactly what it is that the other islands of the OECS are doing when it comes to their own responses to COVID-19, how that ties into what we are doing here in St. Lucia. And it also showed the sort of harmonization of the islands, because we seem to believe that everybody's existing in their own silos, and then we tend to sit here and say, well, in this country this is happening, why isn't it happening here? And that was a point that the Director General was very eager to address, saying that for the islands, everyone is going to do the same thing, but not in the same way. And that is because each island have their own peculiar situations and circumstances. And so while you may be implementing the very same policy, but you would have to tweak it in order for it to fit into your own mold. So to believe that what St. Lucia is doing will be separate and apart from what St. Vincent will be doing, the Director General was quick to say that is not the case, because the heads are talking all the time. And from the time, and even before the pandemic really hit the region, the heads were discussing all of the various mechanisms, the machineries in the islands were already activated. So for us, once we began to see that plans and programs were rolling out, these things had already been agreed upon months in advance. And he even went as far back as when we had the Ebola threats and indicated that from far back then that the OECS region had already gotten into the sort of pandemic response mode. And so nothing that's happening now is by chance. While COVID is new, COVID-19 is new to the world, but certainly response mechanisms for pandemics pretty much remain the same. We will have again to tweak because it is new, but certainly there had always been a plan for responding to pandemics. And as COVID-19 unfolds, it's bringing new challenges. Dr. Jules was also addressed the whole question of how now our governments finding that sort of financial ability, what's the fiscal space within which that they have to work in order to be able to fund the response. So even in that way, he really broke down how these things happen. It's not just to say that you go in and sign in an application and give it to the World Bank and say, and then the World Bank will say, okay, great, here's $10 million. It doesn't work that way. And so the processes that need to be met, the sort of criteria that need to be met. And he also made mention of the OECS heads as well as CARICOM, because we did hear Honorable Mia Motley speak to that very issue, as well as our own Prime Minister, Honorable Shastny. The idea now that the lending agencies are simply dealing with small island states, really just on the per capita income basis. That just wouldn't cut it for us in the region. And he also singled out Antigua as being a recent case of that, where for the IMF funding. So while it would have seemed to many that on the surface that Antigua did not want the IMF intervention. That really wasn't the case. Antigua had been disqualified from participating in the rapid response facility, the credit facility, so because of its per capita income, its GDP. And so because, you know, Antigua having that high per capita income, it was disqualified from that. Okay. So all of those issues, Dr. Didika's jewels, when he said, these are the things that really break or make these small island states in times of crisis. So I would really urge St. Lucians, those in the diaspora, to just go, and if you didn't see the interview, to click on the interview on our Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, and to really sit down and listen very carefully and closely to what Dr. Jules had to say. He's a very, very passionate gentleman, and that passion really showed his love for the region, love for country. And I do hope that all of the plans that the OECS commission, I keep saying secretariat, but it's the commission now, that all of the plans that the commission has in place will be able to be rolled out as we're moving forward, because you know, one of the things that really came across during the interview is that we're not post-COVID. We are really almost like in the eye of the storm sort of thing, that calm there in that storm. And so we are not going to be post-COVID for a long time to come. So whatever we're doing, we are still in that crisis mode.
Absolutely. And I do encourage persons to check out that interview, because it was really, you know, informative in terms of getting that perspective. And speaking on our unique perspective, our unique experience, St. Lucia confirmed another positive case of COVID-19 here on island this week. We were on a 25-day streak, you know, for no cases. And
I think we'd gone up to about, wasn't it almost like 32?
32 days?
32 days, something, yeah. Yeah, 32 days.
Almost a month. Yeah.
Almost a month. Okay. Well, we got pretty far in terms of having for consecutive days no COVID-19. And we got word this week from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar George, of this new case of this case coming from the cruise ship. Take a listen.
On Thursday, June 4th, the Ezra Long Laboratory of the OKEU Hospital reported that from a batch of 23 tests conducted, there was one positive case of COVID-19. The individual is a 33-year-old female who is one of our nationals working on the cruise line. She was recently repatriated to St. Lucia and was placed in institutional quarantine as per national protocol. In keeping with the testing strategy for repatriated cruise line workers, she was swabbed to determine her COVID-19 status. Upon receiving the results confirming this case, the individual has now been placed in isolation for care and is doing well. Though in this instance, the positive COVID-19 result was from an individual in quarantine, the contact tracing process shall still apply. It should be noted that there is very low risk to other people in quarantine given their compliance to the requirements for minimizing risks of exposure to the virus. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, we note that this recently confirmed case demonstrates the importance of our protocol for having every returning national placed in quarantine and monitored for the required 14 days. It is with the commitment to protect the health of every single citizen we require adherence to this quarantine process. Though we do know it may create some amount of anxiety and even frustration for some, the overall benefit of protecting the health and safety of all will in the longer run outweigh these inconveniences.
That was Dr. Sharon Belmar George there, CMO, Chief Medical Officer, speaking on this latest case that has emerged of COVID-19 from a 33-year-old female who is one of our nationals working on a cruise line. She was recently repatriated to St. Lucia and was placed into institutional quarantine. Now, one thing we can say for sure, this definitely put the measures that have been taken to the test in terms of us understanding the importance of the protocol of having every returning national being put into institutional quarantine upon arriving. I think that was the biggest takeaway at this point in time. We certainly have the capacity to take her on and to care for her back to wellness, but this definitely showed that our system in place is well designed to protect the population from contracting imported cases of COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy, because some people say, okay, great, you got the case, but as you indicated, it is through those very measures that some people are trying to resist that we were able to catch that case, Tony?
Yes,
yes. And we still have perhaps more than 200 more St. Lucians often on cruise ship workers, still to be repatriated home. So I would think that for them, it would be that sort of feel safe for them to know that coming in, I'm quarantined. If anything, I can get treated right then and there.
Yes, it's not a case of you going home and you go back to your community. Chances are that you infected the persons, and you have to go through the whole process of the contact tracing if it's not caught early enough. So, yeah, it certainly shows that the systems that have been put in place, definitely that those systems are working.
And the threat is coming from everywhere because, we talk about the opening of the borders and we are focused on the threat that is coming from the quote-unquote visitor. But of course, our returning nationals, that threat is also there as well.
And yeah, I'd really like to add to that, Lisa. We kept, from the inception of all of this, we kept saying, why are we opening the borders to foreigners? Why are we opening the borders to persons, especially from the hot zones and whatsoever? You understand? Or okay. Speaking of the authorities, but it just goes on to say, look, we had our St. Lucian people up to this morning. Case in example, we have the persons in Mr. Ferdinand, president of the Minibus Association. He is caught behind, in all those borders closing down and whatnot, and they have had to up to the first vice president dealing with matters, even the treasurer. I mean, and those are St. Lucians, those are persons running businesses and stuff. I guess the point is we have our St. Lucian persons who want to be repatriated over here. So it's not only a case of tourists or bringing persons who are infected into the country, which brings us now to the point that the CMO and the Commander Office Center there must be, bittersweet news. To say, okay, here's proof that what we have put in place is working, and we have to take into consideration the contact tracing, which persons, some for reason or another, fail to realize that's another aspect of not just getting that person, the infected person, but we are speaking of the contact tracing, where that person have been, what they've been doing, and which would speak to the fact that as we speak, one of the cruise ships are there, and the measures in place to get those persons to the quarantine facility in terms of making sure one at a time the mask, the sanitizing, and all of the above is taken care of. And then you would say, okay, so if she was on board that ship, she came, she was transported, she was at the quarantine, who else are we just saying is one? I mean, thank be to God for now we're saying is one, but what we should highlight is whatever is put in place so far is working. Positive là vini pour COVID et vous savez ça c'est un jeune fille et 33 ans 33 ans oui dans batch yo voyé test 23 moun et puis négatif qui IVA positive excusez-moi ça nous a dit c'est ici yon c'est moun qui vient bord ces bateau et qui travailler sur ces bateaux c'est là qui travaille c'est gens nous ni l'autre pays qui travaille à bord ces bateaux nous ka dit on c'est bail qui bon ça moun ka dit pour qui ça yo ka vo quarantine pour 14 jours mi nous ka un bon exemple pour qui ça si moun ça nous te quitté y aller kaili qui ça qui te kay fait il te kay trouver quoi ka marcher en communauté il te kay un supermarché il te kay point minibus est-ce nous te kay ça ni assez ressources pour vier passer que tout partout passer mettre toutes ces moun ça quarantine quoi nous ka dit nous ka souhaiter li puis famille tout ça qui bon tout bagaille kay marcher bien puis avant ça nous te Lucia te ka parler à sur un sujet qui bien bon qu'on nous ka parler d'ici maintenant il parlait by Dr. Dedikas Jules c'est lui qui est directeur général venu pour ICS là et là venu pour situation nous dans la Covid avec ces petits pays OICS là yo nan se bagay qui était bien important moi que nous besoin savent les vini pour manière nous ka agir puis Covid avec approche là yo nan se bagay là été ka dire ou peut-être kay ouais yon pays qui a fait même bagay là mais différemment ça c'est parce que nous tout pas dit nous ka expériencer même bagay là mais nous ni pour approcher différemment. Moi quoi ça bien important bon exemple c'est là vini pour manière yo ka ve ces petits pays manière nous ka qualifier by finance et puis pour aide yo nan se kuya nous ka tande nous tande hod premier ministre Motley hod babad c'est dat qui ces petits pays love yo ku mette yo à sous même table et puis c'est plus grand pays il pas ka travail yo ka prendre exemple qui manière pays ou ka fait avec nous exemple là ça parler de la vini pour Antigua te kay bien vle si poa mais yon nan se bay là yo pas qualifié parce que yon nan se raison yo dit yo pas qualifié c'est parce que manière bagay ka couvrir pays yo pas fait qualification et puis nous ka dit ça c'est yon nan se bagay là yo ni prouvé directeur général monsieur Dédicace Jules parler à sous ça parmi l'autre bagay mais nous ka ouvert yon nan se bagay là qui bien important c'est nous en mi-temps ça fait Covid là ouais tout ça qu'a fait là bagay là beaucoup passer nous beaucoup raison nous en mi-temps c'est pour ça nous ici à Gabao information c'est pour ça nous ca discuter toujours là vini pour ça qui fait ainsi maintenant nous ca continuer parmi bagay là vini pour parlement parmi bagay l'école qu'a ouvert nous ca discuter et tout ici à bon matin merci tellement pour continuer à suivre nous.
And just to go back on the whole repatriation issue, we need to highlight that we had 47 more returning nationals this week on June 3rd, and among them were cruise ship workers as well as students, and this has brought the total of repatriated persons to 452 thus far. So
nice.
Wonderful.
452?
452, yeah.
And speaking of that, everybody's trying to find the new normal at this time. We had the reopening of our borders this week and the resumption of tourism accommodation services, a sort of phased approach, right, Lisa? Yes. You know, in terms of the reopening, everything is not, all the hotels are not reopened fully, just some hotels to accommodate a smaller number of visitors to our island. And
but even that, Jessie, just to interject that, Dr. Jules also made mention that what we are seeing here in St. Lucia is happening in the other islands as well, because what you want to do, because we would have to coexist and we'd have to go into this new normal mode. So you really want to test to see what it is that our capacities, our system capacities can manage. So the phased reopening as we see it with grades 6 and schools, 5, that's happening in the other islands as well.
Okay, wonderful. I believe we have a report on the reopening of the borders. If we could just go through that report so persons can get an understanding of, you know, the resumption of, you know, the reopening of our society in that sense this week.
St. Lucia will reopen its borders to regional and international countries as of June 4th, 2020. Travelers will be obligated to undergo a COVID-19 test, airport screening, and mandatory quarantine at a government institution. Donald Invite, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, noted that the protocols adopted in St. Lucia have created a blueprint for other Caribbean islands that will also be opening in June.
And for us in St. Lucia, what you have seen is now the development of protocols for the airport, the development of protocols for accommodation service, for ride and share and taxi, and in train is the development of protocols for the water-based sector. So for us now, it was to critically assess the visitor journey and see what happens from the thought pattern or process of deciding to come to our gem and landing in St. Lucia, spending time and then leave. And so in looking at that path and that journey, it was to see what sort of footprint we could leave and what sort of impact we could leave with the travel agent, the tour operators who would have that level of communication of the visitor in knowing what to expect, to let them know of the responsible way that St. Lucia would like to open, to to get in preparations to going on the plane with that negative COVID test and what the expectations at host airport is until you get in country.
With the quarantine regulations currently placed on St. Lucia's major tourism source markets, including Canada and the United Kingdom, St. Lucia in the first instance will be welcoming flights from the United States via Delta, JetBlue and American Airlines. Amy Charles, manager of air traffic services at the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, noted that protocols and guidelines have been put in place to ensure the safety of the frontline staff at the ports.
They have to feel it's a sense of safety, and then for the country to feel safe, because they are the frontline staff that have to face those persons. So, and then you want them to welcome those persons in comfortably, making the persons comfortable and they themselves being comfortable. So of course we realize, okay, how do we take care of those staff? And so as a result, SLASPA realized that they had to install sneeze guards, which we have already almost completed 100%. It'll be ready for the 4th. We also realized that the staff will have to be wearing masks. There'll be certain staff will have to wear maybe more PPE, more protective gear, because they will become closer into contact. Some staff may have to wear face shields as well. So we put all that on board, knowing through the guidance of Mr. Ragnanan and his team what exactly was required.
The permanent secretary at the Ministry of Tourism explained that in the first phase, visitors will only have access to critical services, which include transportation from the airport, a place to stay, and limited water-based recreational activity, also known as coastline tours.
We understand the need for everybody to regain earning a living, and we're very sensitive to that. But at the same time, for us, we need to be able to balance that level of livelihood with the health and safety. And so we're asking for the cooperation of all service providers within the tourism industry. We're asking for the cooperation of the public and persons who are also employees of these service providers. Let us take it on a step-by-step, phased approach. Let us build confidence. Let us do it responsibly. And if we all rally around each other and we're able to do so sufficiently well, then we could move to adding additional services until we might be at that place where we started before COVID.
Ms. Vite also noted that discussion on the repatriation of nationals is currently ongoing. However, nationals wishing to return home are advised to contact the Ministry of Health and Wellness. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
That was a news report there coming from Anicia Antoine on the reopening of our borders. I believe the last time we had our borders opened was before March 23rd, and that was when we had our first declaration of the state of emergency here on island. So this week, June 4th, we've had St. Lucia opening its borders to regional and international countries. The policy guiding this, it includes travelers having to present a negative COVID-19 test and undergoing mandatory quarantine at a government institution. The Ministries of Education, the Ministry of Health and Tourism are working together to coordinate this new phase of the national response to COVID-19. As you saw there, the clips were extracted from a panel discussion that was moderated by Alyssa Joseph earlier this week in terms of the reopening of our borders. With Ms. Donalyn Vite, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. We had the Chief Environmental Health Officer, as well as, I believe it's Ms. Amy Charles, yes, from SLASPA, speaking on how this reopening would pan out, the very stringent measures that have been taken to ensure the health and safety of the staff, workers from the airport to the hotel, and every aspect at this point that the tourists will be exposed to in terms of this new tourism experience.
And just to highlight, coming out of those discussions, we heard the Permanent Secretary talking about the step-by-step approach, and this is only the first phase. From what has been discussed, there are actually 3 phases. The second phase, I think, springs into action from August 1st to September 30th, and then you have the third phase in October. Additionally, you have a list of those hotels who have to be COVID-19 certified. And these are the hotels that will be presented to the travel operators. You heard discussions about the travel operators and boosting confidence first in the travel operators who now need to sell the tours to St. Lucia. So that list of hotels that are COVID-19 certified will be presented to those travel operators in the first instance.
But you know, Tony, there were lots of conversation during that panel discussion, certainly in the public sphere, regarding the airlines. And airlines, well, the airlines are not flying, that they've pulled out and they're not coming. So what's the point of having borders open because the airlines are pulling out? And I wouldn't want to say that they're pulling out, but certainly the airlines are going through their own.
And they're putting their own protocols in place as well.
Exactly. So they're going through a whole lot of turbulence at this time, like everyone else, every other sector. And so the airlines too are looking at their bottom line, one, and they're looking at the protocols. So they have their own protocols that they need to put in place when you take into consideration the context of what flying entails, and then of course what countries are asking for. So they are now weighing, I know as a fact, the idea of the load. So if I have a 247 seats craft, do I now bring that down to 50% of my load? And so now how am I going to make up in terms of the finances in that difference there? So there are a lot of factors coming into play before the airlines are really up and running. But the primary focus though now is the idea of the rapid test, because so far as I've read, countries are asking for that 48-hour test. So you need to provide that. So I haven't really come across those countries that are not asking for that. Even where you are having the domestic travel. So in Canada, for example, people are moving from one province to the next, and they are asking for you to be able to have that certificate, or you are going to quarantine where you are. Now, for these larger countries, they also have, some of them are using apps. So while they may require you not to necessarily be quarantined at a state facility, but they are tracking your very movement. So once you are going in, you're asked to quarantine, but they are tracking your movements via apps. So are we at that level here in the region? No. So the safer thing is for you to be able to quarantine, for you to be able to present that certificate. So for the airlines, they're really hopeful, like the rest of all of us, that the rapid test will now be more accurate than what it is now. So that is what people are banking on, that we'll be able to get that rapid test so that you can use out there in the community, and it is going to be as accurate as possible. So
and the other factor for airlines as well, Lisa, this is a discussion that has been ongoing in terms of creating travel hubs.
Oh, yes.
So is it profitable
It's
for,
happening.
say, let us say, American Airlines to fly directly to St. Lucia from Miami or Atlanta, or is it possible that they fly to Barbados or Antigua as a hub? And you also have to look at the factor, initially, what would those airlines' load capacity be returning? So in the initial phase, let us say when they decide they're going to fly in, for the first few days, they fly into St. Lucia, initially with 100, 200 passengers on vacation. It would mean that for the first few days, if St. Lucians are not traveling to the US, or if persons are not being repatriated to the US, the possibility of them flying back virtually empty. So all of those factors are being taken into consideration. So it's not just a question of looking at just tourism in a bubble, that these airlines are coming here and the risk factor involved. Yes, obviously there is the risk factor. This is why, as you mentioned, things like the rapid tests, the temperature checks and what have you, all of these things are being put in place in the first phase as we have decided to open our borders.
Cox?
Oui. Discussion va continuer ici avec moi bien content parce que c'est question moi quoi qui jamais des pli pour si maintenant et quand chaque monde a fait argument laisse ça. Si nous dit nous pour connait pièce cas de Covid et ben nous réunion en si maintenant mais pour qui ça nous ca ouvert. Explanation c'est yon nous tande qui a bail et un bon argument fait là Tony. Là il vini pour dire même si nous ouvert nous préparer comment monde qui ca venir puis nous. est-ce avion yo pawe pour voler et yo même ni pour mettre bagay en place et nous ka parler est-ce yo ka fait pièce profit ka voler ka passer l'Amérique et ben est-ce que ça vini antique est-ce que ça entre babad et vini ici mais plus l'autre question c'est est-ce que les yo ka vie yo ka hen moun pour vie puis yo quand là nan chay bagay qui ni pour mettre en place yon c'est bon bagay là Lucia j'ai parlé à celui-là qui bien important. Est-ce nous ne qualité ressources là nous ka l'autre pays ni quand tel qu'on on y téléphone nous et puis yo ça suivre des points en les téléphones quand pas mis monde concept lycée sous la caillou comme monde ka dit ou la caillou ou pas aller l'autre côté mais yo jani bagay en place l'autre pays côté depuis au niveau na yon limo yo ça suivre et l'autre bail yo commande des certificats ou ni pour présenter un certificat si on ni pour sortir en place dans l'autre et ça c'est ces bagay là nous ka ouais nous ni pour mettre en place et si nous bien écouter invité le ministre qui est responsable pour tourisme pièce là il dit nous ouvert et nous ni pour qui manière bagay là marcher si bagay ka marcher et puis qui ça nous ni pour mettre en place parce que yon a ces bagay là nous toujours ka dit ici pièce son pas ni pièce livre qui écrit pour dire les covid vini mais c'est ça aussi supposé faire tout monde ka apprendre pas dit temps nous ka aller incident vini nous ni pour ka chiller laisser moun à bord plein nous ni pour ka chiller les yo entre en airport nous ni pour ka chiller c'est moun qui ka prend yo hot custom nous ne pouvons pas chiller ces taxi driver, nous ne pouvons pas chiller hôtel là. Quand mettez tout ensemble, il y a une opportunité pour pas dit temps bagay pour venir pressé et ben pas dit temps tout le monde pour mettre bagay en place. Nous ça si nous un problème et qui manière nous ça doit essayer. Pas les bagay ka marcher tout partout bien bawassé et nous pas nan chance à présent nous ka essayer mettre bagay en place. Comment ka quoi ça c'est bon bagay là qui a sorti en dedans là venu pour moun ka comprendre même si nous ouvert raison nous ouvert c'est pour nous mettre bagay en place. Raison nous ouvert pour laisser avion dit oui nous kay voler vinn cette lycée japa oui et pas dit temps nous pour ka hen en chay trafic en chay moun ka voler ka entrer nous ça mettre ba en place pour nous savent qui ça la briser pli moun pour sanitize la même monde vous savez qui ça nous briser ces taxi ou était plus loin yon a l'autre nous ka qui ça qui briser mettre en place quoi yon a ces bagay là nous ni pour prendre en considération et nous ka quoi especially quand nous discuter moun ka comprendre nous pas ouvert parce que nous voulons mener vers maintenant nous pas ouvert parce que tout le monde ka fait mais nous ka fait yon manière ban l'autre il ni pour avec les nouvelles nous ni pour préparer et ça ka mener nous pour ka nous ni si nous pas faire ça si nous pas tenir bagay en place yon a ces moun ça qui ka travailler puis ces bâtiments il même trouver quoi tester positif qui manière nous te ka savent ça quoi on ka pour qui ça yo ka dit même sous ces gens cette ici même sous un touriste là ou quand tuer ou ni pour faire 14 jours quarantine et raison pour ça bien clair semaine ça là nous yon a ces moun qui entoué là yo point test là mi à présent nous ka date qui il a travail parce que si nous pas te mettre là nous pas te kay ça savent ça et nous ni plus problème sous la main nous parce que nous te kay ni pour aller visiter tout partout déjà passé et nous pas ni ces ressources ça quand un bon bagay yon pour ka chiller nous ka nous hamité clété en laisse ça nous va continuer visiter ça qui fait si maintenant et tout ça nous discuter en semaine ça à son ensemble de bon matin aujourd'hui c'est le 6 juin.
So but no regional travel because you know again during that panel discussion but we have a LIAT, which has said that it's not going to be flying not until July.
But they have chartered.
But yes, they're doing the chartered flights now, but commercially they're not flying because the other airlines are available for charter and we've been using them for charter as well in the repatriation. But commercially, LIAT will not be flying not till July, which is pretty much what the other airlines have indicated.
Yes, because looking at a report from Travel Weekly, I'm seeing, for example, Delta, JetBlue, and American Airlines indicating the possibility of them flying into St. Lucia by the first week of July. But just the airline discussion has been one that has been quite intriguing over the last couple of weeks. For example, just this week I looked at, I think it was announced in the UK, there are restrictions in terms of quarantine, in terms of travelers, opening up the borders, but you have to quarantine. And then on the other side of things, British Airways announced that they're looking at their legal options, because that method is very restrictive in terms of persons traveling. And then Ryanair join in and say, well, you know, they will join in with BA if, you know, the legal options have been pursued. Then you had another airline announcing, well, they started traveling and then they canceled flight because the passengers were not following. Well, some passengers not adhering to the protocols, you know, while they're on the flight. You know, the wearing of the mask, which is one of our own protocols for flying into St. Lucia. Staying in your seat and wearing that mask whilst you on that flight from the US to St. Lucia. So it's a very interesting situation. It's very dynamic, and I'm pretty sure we'll see some changes being made, some tweaking being made as the different phases come into play.
Imagine that, having to look at legal options.
Yes.
Just imagine that.
What we're going to do right now is just go to a break. And when we come back, we take a look at the parliamentary proceedings of the past week. We had the sitting of the House of Assembly and Senate, and there were quite a few motions tabled, and we will be getting into that, as well as the reopening of school. We had the reopening of school grade 6 and Form 5s this week. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Education, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, their hands were all over it in terms of ensuring the health and safety of teachers and students for this return. So stay tuned for these updates on the week that was.
We at war with a virus, ready to harm us. Panic is not the answer. We can win this together. Often use hand sanitizer. Better yet, use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are up. No, no.
Advice is you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
As part of government's social stabilization plan to assist persons who have lost their means of earning due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of St. Lucia has implemented the Income Support Program, where non-contributors to the NIC shall receive a monthly payment of $500 for the next 3 months. Taxi drivers, jet ski operators, vendors, agro-processors, tour guides, hairdressers, barbers, small bar and restaurant operators, construction workers, and other sole traders who meet the criteria can apply using the Government of St. Lucia's website, www.govt.lc. Payments will be made directly via electronic transfer to the recipient's bank account. The Income Support Program, simple strides towards recovery.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining, we are live on NTN from the Information Command Center, bringing you the highlights, the updates, the developments of the week that was in terms of our response here in St. Lucia to COVID-19. We continue with looking back at the week with the reopening of school. We saw the grade 6 and Form 5 students, which is a phased reopening of in-class instruction, happening this week on Wednesday, 3rd June. We have a report on the health protocols at schools that were put in place, featuring the Dame Perlette Louise Primary School as well as the Ministry of Health on the measures that have been taken to ensure that your kids, your children returning to school, and teachers as well, are safe during the in-class instruction.
The Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education have been working tirelessly to ensure the health and safety of students and teachers as schools reopen for grade 6 and Form 5 students. As part of the precautions to prevent the potential spread of COVID-19, schools around the island facilitated both physical distancing and infection prevention and control measures. Chief Environmental Health Officer Packer Ragnanan expressed confidence that schools will adhere to the protocols and ensure teaching is delivered in a safe environment.
We are living in a new period. The issue of COVID-19 is a very real issue. We've seen what has happened in some places where you open up, and if you're not ready in terms of having the measures in place to combat the spread of that dreaded virus, you may end up with problems. And hence the reason why it is so important that the ministry and primarily the schools and the principals implement these protocols and ensure that they are in place at all times. Again, it is the measures that would ensure health and well-being of the population at the school.
Principal of the Dame Paulette Louise Primary School, Eflin Leos, spoke on the health protocols implemented at the school.
We were very conscious of social distancing, so we first of all placed markers along the ground on entry so that the students can keep their distance when coming into the compound. We also sent out letters to the parents stipulating that no one will be allowed on the compound without a mask. Parents were also asked to refrain from coming on the compound for anything except if it's an emergency. So we have only the children entering the compound. When students enter, they were informed in advance through the letter that they will stick to the markers, and when they get to a point that they will be sanitized. So we have our janitors. We had 4 janitors on the spot for sanitization, and they sprayed and sanitized the students. From that point, the students then moved to the next point where the temperatures were being taken by 2 teachers who were trained to do that specifically.
One major component of the health protocols at the schools is the support of nurses to provide the services upon request. Assistant Principal Nursing Officer Tekla Jean-Baptiste spoke on this collaboration.
Ahead of the reopening of schools, a contact list of healthcare facilities and regional supervisors has been circulated to all schools through the Department of Education. This is to facilitate ease of communication. The community health nurses will conduct regular visits to schools within their respective catchment areas. They will maintain regular contact with teachers and principals in order to address any concerns or any issues that may arise at the schools.
The Ministry of Health advises that children with signs and symptoms of respiratory illness be kept home or seek medical care at the nearest community respiratory clinics. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fernal Neptune.
That news report there coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness is Fernal Neptune, Information Officer stationed there. Just giving some information on the health protocols at the schools, featuring the principal from the Dame Paulette Louise Primary School, as well as Assistant Principal Nursing Officer Tekla Jean-Baptiste on this collaboration to ensure that our kids and teachers are safe as we do this phased reopening of school, physical, in-class instruction at this time. Just want to move on quickly to the parliamentary proceedings for this week. We did see 3 loans in the motions this week being tabled. The House of Assembly met on Tuesday, and that proceeding continued into the wee hours of Wednesday morning, and the sitting of Senate was convened on Thursday, and the motions include the loan of $7.9 million being sought for the Millennium Highway and West Coast Reconstruction Project. Also, the Caribbean Regional Communications Program, CARCIP initiative, as well as the Human Capital Resilience Project as well. All initiatives for St. Lucia. CARCIP is to complete our infrastructure, the networking for our infrastructure here on island. The Human Capital Resilience Project is aimed also at helping the poor and the underprivileged, as well as the TVET, giving a shot in the arm to our TVET programming here in St. Lucia. I just want to go to a clip of the Honorable Stephenson King going back into the first loan that was tabled in the Honorable House this week for the Millennium Highway and West Coast Reconstruction Project. Quite a huge undertaking on the part of the government of St. Lucia. We just want to note that the $7.9 million that is being put forward by St. Lucia is its share, its end of the bargain in terms of this initiative. The total cost of this project is $99.2 million EC dollars, and most of it is coming from grant funding. It's being funded by the CDB. And so St. Lucia is capitalizing on the fact that we don't have schools fully reopened. We don't have the hustle and bustle of the tourism activity going up and down the West Coast. We heard the Honorable Prime Minister indicate the hope that they can move forward as soon as possible with the construction of this project, beginning with the roundabout at the cul-de-sac junction there, as well as the work on the Millennium Highway. Let's just go to the first clip from Stephenson King on how exactly the project is being financed.
The layoff period as enshrined in the Labour Code, or the Labour Act as it is known, is to allow a business person to, faced with the condition, to lay off its workers for a period of 12 weeks, 3 months. Upon the expiration of the 3 months, the employer, therefore, it means that that period would qualify for severance, and the employer would. The proposed project will be financed in the following ways: a loan from the government to the government of St. Lucia by the CDB of an amount not exceeding the equivalent of $7.945 million, which is what we are here this evening debating and for which we anticipate approval. That, Mr. Speaker, represents 15% of the project cost. 15% of project cost is what forms our commitment to the project. Then a grant to the government of St. Lucia of an amount not exceeding the equivalent of $27.83 million, which is US $35.342 million from CDB's SFR, which is the allocation from resources provided by the United Kingdom through the Department of International Development under the United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, UKCIF resources, representing 67% of the project cost. So 67% comes from the United Kingdom. Counterpart funding of EC 24.61 million, representing 17% of project costs, to finance land acquisition, project preparation, institutional strengthening, project management, and to partly finance infrastructure works.
That was the way in which this this huge project, capital project, will be funded. If we could just go to the clip with the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet speaking on this undertaking.
Mr. Speaker, my government recommended the following: that the barrel concession program commence on June 2nd, to run for 8 months and expire on January 31st, 2021. The number of barrels granted under this program be restricted to 2 barrels to each household. That the beneficiaries of the concession be granted 100% waiver of import duty, excise tax on unsolicited personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household contained in barrels imported. That the concession not apply to electronic items. That persons are to pay the requisite taxes, duties, and charges on barrels outside of the concessionary provisions as applicable in normal trade.
Until 11:30.
That was a clip there from the Honorable Prime Minister. Not the correct clip. We're having some technical difficulties, but interesting enough, we can go into it speaking on the barrel concessions that have been put in place for the early barrel concessions that have been put in place in response to these very hard times that we're facing, the uncertainty of the future as well. A lot of persons have been made unemployed. We're facing the hurricane season ahead of us, and many families abroad perhaps are in a position to send some help in the form of barrels at this time. And we're getting the extension and the early start of the concessions, barrel concessions period, starting from June 2nd and 2020 till the 31st of January 2021. So
well, you know, a lot of people believe that the early meant early, and early is right away. And so, you know, I happen to have seen a number of videos and comments pertaining to people having to go and look for the free groceries, quote unquote, and not being accommodated at the customs and shipping agency, believing that if June 2nd that everything would have been on the roll-up. But remember that it was discussed in the House the Tuesday, which was June 2nd, passed in the lower house. It needed to go to the upper house, which would have been on June 4th, right, which was a Thursday. And after that, you know, it still has to send to the Governor General. It has to get signed, and then that instrument, that legal instrument now, would be law. And so all of those agencies related to the shipping business would now be guided accordingly. So we'd imagine that by next week, everything will be as stated, and so it will be as normal. So the very methods used during the Christmas time for the Christmas barrel, that is what applies with this early Christmas barrel period.
So there's a possibility Cooks will get his barrel in time for Father's Day.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's very good.
Once that barrel came in during the month of June,
Yes,
don't expect that it came outside of the month of before June, and for you to benefit from that. Okay,
but we
Cox?
did give a heads up. I mean, you know, we're just keeping it, you know, in the vein, and making sure je change joie.
Joie qu'a venir.
But you know, an interesting discussion, Cooks, and possibly we could get someone on the program to discuss that. Quite apart from the barrel, remittances from overseas.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if you all have observed the lines
Western Union
at
and
Western
MoneyGram.
Union,
Yeah.
MoneyGram, what have you, during this period. It would be interesting to get someone on the program to discuss that aspect of things. Usually it's something you see around Christmas time, what have you, but over the last several weeks we've been observing the lines. And yes.
Now, could it simply be because of the protocols that you may be
I was
seeing,
about to say.
that the numbers outside?
But again, we have to take into consideration the contribution of our diaspora, those persons over there.
Yes.
I mean, while Lisa, we over here thinking of NIC's part of the stimulus package is, you know, a mere 500 EC. Think of somebody who not necessarily, for lack of a better term, wouldn't be able to take care of themselves and getting deposited into their account $1,200 US. I mean, even the $100 is an equivalent of what, 260 over here. So even while we see what is cushioning our folks over there, and bear in mind we have a lot of persons who depend on that little subvention coming from abroad. I mean, the little stipend from relatives abroad. It does contribute to our economy.
Yes.
Which brings us back now to the barrels, which of course we would say around Christmas. And remember, the Prime Minister...
But do you think that we'll be getting barrels? Because that was part of the public discussion, that if the entire world is going through this hard time,
I think we will,
and for
Lisa.
us to open up, you know, extend the season, who says that barrels
But
will
the barrels are like twofold. You have persons from overseas who would send barrels for their relatives, but now you actually have agencies here who encourage St. Lucians to shop for your barrel, basically the same way you go on Amazon and shop for your stuff and so on. So you here, you trying to stretch your dollar as much as possible, listening to the discussion from the Bankers Association, asking persons to try to make more with little.
So you can
so
have
a family,
families coming together.
3 or 4 of you get your $500 assistance, and you decide, hey, if you go to this place, you might end up spending more. So why don't we come together? and we make a list of the things that we need for the family, and you shop online for what you need, a bile, and it's sent down for you. So you do have those situations as well.
And added to that, Tony, what I want to say when it comes to the subject, in terms of bulk, which is what we find happening right now because of the unstable, you do not know the fluid system of COVID. I mean, you have a situation where you know what it would cost, just like you suggested or you were saying, Lisa, if a family comes together and we are saying, let's buy a case of tuna fish. What it would cost you to buy that case. Let's buy the tissue, for example. Let's buy a bale. Even the size, they have the jumbo, even what's available here to us. And even with the advent of we having our borders being closed, you know, and what is being shipped in to us. As a matter of fact, you have a choice right now to say, okay, you want a big or extra large and whatnot, and that should carry you through with the dishwashing liquid and all of soap, toiletries and whatnot. So, moi ka question bon bagay kon nou ka parler à so affaire bah oui, ou ka savent concession nan ka commencer, well commencer le deuxième jour mois juin, pas dit tout papier a mettre en place, mais moi ça nous ka ouais affaire bah oui a commencer en bagay nous normalement te kay ouais pour bay moun soulagement bon décembre. Après ça nous ka ouais ka commencer en mois juin pour juste dernier jour en mois janvier. Quand ça va 8 mois. Nous a dit nous savons bagay mauvais l'autre côté, mais les bagay viennent petit à petit, mais nous jamais été nous en place pour nous anti bagay. Encore tout ça qui a tombé en bas plan gouvernement les venu pour assister citoyens, assister Saint-Lucie parmi l'autre bagay, pas dit NIC, pas dit petit soulagement sous taxe, pas dit ces gens qui pas payer NIC qui a un soulagement mortuarium nous ka tout ça hot bank côté ou ka un petit soulagement la paille disconnect ou les venu pour glow, les venu pour quoi parmi tout ça nous ka bah oui quand c'est pas nek dit c'est yon bagay mais nous prend en considération tout bagay vient ensemble quand à présent nous ka dit yon ce développement nous c'est premier ministre et puis cabinet ka mettre en place ka commencer bah oui concessionnaire bah oui quand on ça mène had manger pour caillou toys by c'est maman là mais rien électronique et ben rien pour vendre ou peut pas mener ça mais là il vient pour caillou là il vient pour manger expressement là il vient pour monde qui a gain commission nous ka ouais ça ka commencer ces nouvelles qui sorti parmi l'autre bail qui discuter kay consiste Simenza c'est Bawia un lot chay parler dit là il vient pour manger chimé millennium là nous ka ouais en l'argent presque $8 millions américains qui c'est pas gouvernement 15% gouvernement tenu pour venir puis parce que nous te ha 30 millions ponts ça c'est là en sorte l'Angleterre et quand parmi bagay nous kay qui kay doit c'est l'argent ça chimé million nan qu'on nous chimé tunnel là nous kay yon roundabout là en souci en pont souci et puis parmi l'autre bagay en pont lance là oui quand tout ça kay tombé parmi l'argent ça avec projet ça gouvernement kay ni la souci parmi l'autre bagay qui parlait aussi ou kay savent l'argent là venu pour résilience et puis projet social nous ka ouais en qui fait pour ça nous l'argent alloqué pour ça et puis là venu pour nous ici à café gamme pour entrer faire toute bagarre sur internet nous ka ouais en l'autre loan gouvernement pour mettre facilité en place nous ka ouais gouvernement aussi mettre dans ces motions ça pour développer secteur ça c'est secteur électronique là secteur où toute bagarre présent ka tourner sur computer et puis internet parmi bagarre qui parler en kai consiste sur témoigner et nous ka toujours encourager aller à sur page Facebook gouvernement Saint-Lucie pour ka toute information parmi l'autre bagarre discussion et interview qui fait ici il y en a qui nous parlait c'est là venu pour directeur général de Dicas Jules avec ces informations il y a des pièces il y en a ces programmes où ça vient visiter sur YouTube et bien sur page gouvernement Saint-Lucie NTNGIS où ça aller là avec toutes ces informations ça merci tellement bien.
So do we know that I know in Parliament there was especially in the Senate there was the discussion, the arguments about repurposing of loans at this time. Was the Millennium Highway loan one that could have been repurposed? Did we have that discussion as you were following the House?
Suggestion was made to that aspect, but again, not to my knowledge. I don't know if anybody said it. I think they the
Millennium Highway The Millennium Highway and West Coast Reconstruction Project, it was a grant that was given by the CDB for this specific reason, for the Millennium Highway and West Coast.
Go off and
so we would have to take advantage of this grant by just paying the balance that was our end of the bargain.
Yes, and Lucia's contribution was the 15% to access it, rather.
So the 15% is being loaned,
which is there
from
in the
CDB
amount of
and of course, the UK government gave the grant.
Yes,
there you go.
DFID gave the grant. Yes, my apologies.
Gave that grant. Because if I remember, I hope I'm not mistaken, but that DFID grant, we were about to lose that money because it had been sitting there for
quite 3 years or so.
Quite some time.
Yeah, you're
and
right
normally when these grants are, the monies are placed there and then you do not put it to use, the donor country retrieves their money.
Yes.
So we were about to lose that, and so that money was now said, well, let's redirect it and let's use it and do it for that purpose.
But even added to that, Jesse, while we were reporting from the House subject, I think the JICA, the assistance from the Japanese government for the bridge.
For the bridge. JICA
as well.
Yeah, it was, you could see, the two of them coming together in terms of that road being constructed and the bridge, the necessary
running simultaneously.
for the bridge. And also part proceeds of that same amount goes to reconstruction of the ancillary bridge. Yeah. So it's a combination of the road, the roundabout, and the two bridges in terms of cul-de-sac and ancillary.
And I think one of the things that's probably lost on us is that, especially where we have the Japanese coming in, they're the most resilient, climate resilient nations around. Yeah. And so I am very, very happy that we are now going to be building with that resilience in mind. And the Japanese input, to my mind, will definitely put us at a level where we can now be less worried that if we just simply have some rains, that cul-de-sac would be that flooded valley.
And even if it's flooded, the bridges could accommodate the amount of water.
Right, so you're raising up the roads and creating a whole sort of pathways, because I heard Minister King speak about the hydraulics of that area and looking at the river and sort of redirecting and really creating that sort of buffering and so where it's needed. So it's more than just saying that you are redoing a bridge. It's not about the bridge, but everything else surrounding the bridge. Yes.
And added to that, as you rightly said about the bridge, I think we heard from Honorable Dominic Fede, which his constituency in ancillary, that bridge to date still could only accommodate one vehicle. It's not a dual at a time, and taking into consideration is the highway to our, as we call it, touristic capital, Soufrière, and we have all that traffic. You know, we could see the need for where we need a smooth flow and to accommodate, like we say in wishful thinking, when we're back to the new normal, we have all the transportation going down that side. It does add, you know, to that
and
whole
even for
aspect.
us, even for us, that you're traveling down, you just really want to feel that you're doing so in comfort and safety, most importantly. So if it starts to rain and you're stuck down in the south and you're coming up, you don't have to worry about the floodplains that you have to cross. And when you get there, you can't go through the waters and you're worried about where am I going to spend the night? Will I be safe? So it's a lot. Yes. I've gone through that, so I know what that feels like.
Okay, all right. Ironically, Lisa, I was joking about it and I was telling Jesse, could you imagine when it comes to the tunnel highway? I mean, reference was made to the fact that persons have jokingly said it's almost like a roller coaster word, and those words came from a Chekapesh production. And to
did you copyright that?
Copyright that. Where the royalties?
So really, the question was posed to me at the time as a politician, and then that was my response. My response was, so what are you saying about the tunnel highway? And I said, we brought two projects together. We wanted a roller coaster ride for the kids and the country, and we had. So it's good to see at least Tony, that being taken care of, and of course, apparently persons were listening. I mean, there's a need for it on a more serious note. Rightly so, if we recall in our banana days, and even linking the north to the south. And when we speak of transportation and carrying of goods, containers and whatnot, we know what it was like in the hills of the Latok Road. How many accidents we have there, how many trucks we had going on. I think Minister Honorable Guy Joseph spoke to that. Remember, that was the only way up the hills there.
But I want to also say, if we speak about goods and so, but you know that we have the hospital now along there. And so the ambulances are transporting people to the hospital. And I can say from a personal experience, when I was in all of that pain that I was in and not knowing what was happening with me, having to travel on that road, that roller coaster that you're speaking about, that pain went up 100 times fold. So I can tell you that it really was not a good experience. So as much as possible, if we can get that road smoothed out, most importantly for that, because like I said, I have to speak from personal experience. And so if that road was smooth, though I was in pain, I wouldn't have to be screaming as much as I did once that it hit that sort of bumpy thing and up and down, and because you know the ambulance needs to travel at a speed to get there.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Absolutely. We've run out of time, actually. We'd like to thank our viewers for watching. And just to give you some quick information we have remaining in terms of Parliament, we did see the tourism levy bill being pulled off of the order paper this week, and of course it is subject to further review. The government of St. Lucia acknowledging the legitimate concerns that were voiced during this week when it was tabled in the House of Assembly. So please take note of that. We will be providing you with a roundup of the parliamentary proceedings. Do stay tuned to the programming here on NTN, and that will be coming so you get an understanding of everything that transpired, the highlights of the parliamentary proceedings of this week. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for sitting in as usual this weekend. Just going back and looking at the week that was, we do wish the individual who contracted COVID-19, the St. Lucian, a speedy recovery. And as we enter this new normal, we hope everybody continues to adhere to the protocols. We are still under a state of emergency. Please be mindful, expiring on the 30th day of September, as well as, all of the ordinances of wearing the mask and 6-foot distance, they all apply. Usually you come away from the high and the immediacy of things, and we were in a state of emergency. There was a 24-hour lockdown and everything seemed very hyped at that time. But we want to continue this vigilance that we started with to ensure that we keep our families and ourselves safe during this time that we get to live with COVID-19. Any final words, guys, before we wrap up?
Just to say that I know during the conversation with the Minibus Association, a number of people were asking where they can make contact with the association. Just to give you that number on air, the number is 452-5774 for the National Council on Public Transportation. The number again, 452-5774. Yeah?
For me, my final word is basically we always highlight, often I should say, the negative news coming out of St. Lucia, especially at our healthcare system. So it was quite gratifying. I'm sure most of you saw it, the story about a St. Lucian neurosurgeon who performed a complex brain surgery at OKEU.
Yep.
I think that was quite interesting, and all over the world we need to share that story. We need to, express our kudos. Basically, recently a team of neurosurgeons raced against the clock to save the life of a 55-year-old St. Lucian patient at the OKEU hospital. The patient was an unfortunate victim of a tragic motor vehicle accident that placed him in a coma. He sustained severe injuries to the head, spine, and chest, with the head injuries being the most life-threatening. St. Lucian neurosurgeon Dr. Kirby Sidney led the team in a 4-hour-long surgery. He explained that the blows to the head causing the threatening swelling to the brain, as well as bleeding in and on the brain, which were confirmed by CT scan images. Dr. Sidney explained that the procedure involved the use of specialized equipment to open a large window to the skull, essentially removing almost half the skull. The surgery was a success and the first major step in saving the patient's life. So that was my feel-good story for the week. And,
absolutely.
Kudos to the surgeon and his assistants there.
Short but sweet, I'd just like to advise our public to maintain protocols as it relates to the masks, the washing of the hands, the social distancing, and of course still remain staying at home if you do not have to go out. And of course, please, if you do go out, remember, start with yourself, protecting yourself. If you do that, you're protecting somebody else. And I hope we could have seen light in the fact that the systems in place, if not all, but some of it are working. When we have to take into considerations persons who were repatriated, and we could see the system actually getting in contact with someone after the test who was positive and having time isolate that person. Ek encore qu'on nous ka fait ici à moi on ek vle di moi ka kwe ek moi ka mandi ek na plaider puis public lan souple an nous suivre protocole, an nous faire assurer pas même si nous ka vie ouvert dat ki tout bagay javier normal. Non. Masque la, laver la main, distance sociale là, 6 pieds à hod yon à l'autre, là en public, mais à présent nous t'en hod, c'est Jean minibus là, sous kay bâti un minibus point transport souple, mettez masou, l'œil vini pour ou sous ka senti malade. Faire assis ou à l'empièce yon dans ces cliniques là, où ça allait, trouver qu'on tester, ça qui plaît important, sous pas une pièce raison pour sortir, pas sortir. Nous continuons à dire merci, expressement pour ces gens nous sur Facebook, merci pour vous qui suivre, ou qui écouter nous sur radio pour si maintenant, ou toujours qu'à faire ça, nous qu'à là vini pour week-end, on a bon week-end, et pour pas faire qu'on lycée puis tourner, et pomme network. Jesse?
Thanks for that, Carlton. And with that, we leave you. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. My name is Jessie Leonce on behalf of this team here and the production team as well. We do hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay tuned for more NTN programming, and we'll meet you again at the top of the week, God willing. Bye-bye for now.